I had actually put out recently that I was interested in at least making some sort of content based around music, since I do talk a lot about just how much I enjoy talking about music, how much I enjoy music in general. There's a reason why I have all these vinyls up here. Half of you actually said, okay, sure, do whatever the fuck you want. We don't give a fuck. The other half of you, I got a Glock in my yard. And for those of you who don't know exactly what kind of music I like, caveman music. But every now and then I will switch it up and just do other types of music. So it's not always going to be rap music, or it's not always going to be like R&B. So for starters, I feel like I really got to get this one out of the fucking way, because I'm going to spend probably the most time talking about this album. That being the brand new Future and Metro Boomin album, We Don't Trust You. So it may be no surprise. I know the light is blocking that vinyl, but I'm a big Future fan. And ever since Heroes and Villains, I was even more excited to hear what a Future and Metro Boomin collab project would be, considering the fact that I think Future's doing really well these past couple years in terms of just his overall performance and just putting out albums in particular, compared to how it's been in the past some odd years after DS2 had came out. Metro Boomin as a producer is in his prime right now. That may be a hot take considering like how many classics that man has already put out. So hearing the grand duo of Future and Metro Boomin get back together again for a whole project, I was excited. And then they released the trailer, and then they had to pull some fucking bullshit. They gave us 2 dates, and I immediately thought, oh, first date, it's gonna be the single. Second date, it's gonna be the album. No, it's 2 fucking albums. I know this is gonna sound fucking crazy, and I'm gonna sound biased, but really, this is probably Future's best album since DS2. There's a reason why the DS2 vinyl is up there, and I'm not gonna lie, it may have to come down after this album, because not only is Metro Boomin doing a phenomenal job on production overall, with some of the production on tracks like Cinderella with Travis Scott, even like that with Kendrick Lamar as the Future. Yes, it was a great verse. Yes, I'm excited to see where it goes. That's all I'm gonna say about that verse. Future's overall vocals, when it came to not only just rapping but also singing on some of the few tracks where he does do stretch his vocals a bit with a song such as Running Out of Time. On top of that, just his lyrical ability as well. Not to say that I think Future's the most lyrical rapper, which by no means he is not, but on a song like Everyday Hustle with Rick Ross, I'd say he really did well on that kind of production, since it was something that is very much out of Future's kind of lane. And even with his flows in particular, it's like a fucking time machine, and it takes you all the way back to 2015 when they dropped DS2, and just the countless fucking hits that Future had throughout that time. And I could list off so many tracks to say that is my favorite. I could go into the intro track with We Don't Trust You. I could I could talk about Like That. I could talk about Cinderella. I could talk about Type Shit. But I gotta say my favorite track, and this one's also I'm a little biased on this note. My favorite track on the album has to be Ice Attack. And the main reason why I say that I'm a little biased in this is because that first portion of Ice Attack, and how I've heard that snippet for the past 2 fucking years. I got money, but I ain't got time. These hoes getting too obsessed. And I'm not gonna lie, the fact that Too Obsessed was essentially just the intro to this song, and it wasn't its own fully fleshed out song. I can't lie, I was a little disappointed at first, but it kind of grew on me over time. But even again, the second part of Ice Attack is really fucking hard on its own. I don't know what kind of shit Metro was on, but like the way he uses those 808s and just hits them repeatedly. And then Future, I think with that song in particular, I think he's created his own Push and P. And what I mean by that is that when Gunna released Push and P, everybody, and I'll even be one of those people who will admit it, that everybody started saying Pushin P. Now, it may not be to the same degree as Pushin P, but the motherfucker said Banoodles.
When Banoodles on the dog at home, that's all. Go parade.
That shit's so hard. Now, as far as if this album is better than DS2, since I'm giving it so much praise and how I'm literally saying how I could remove that vinyl, I'm not gonna lie, it's kind of up in the air right now. And I think the thing that's kind of slowing this thing down for me is just the fact that we have to wait till the second album. And I heard some people say that, oh, the second album's just gonna be like another it's gonna be repeating history with 2017 when he released his self-titled project and then Hendrix literally a week later. I don't think that's going to be the case and how it's going to be sonically totally different, because that gives me the impression that, oh, this is going to be a new named album. That doesn't make sense, because why wouldn't you just reveal the name of the second album for that trailer that has both dates for both albums? But, you know, why wouldn't you just reveal the name of the second album? So the wheels started turning and I was like, it's either one of two things. It's either going to be Monster 2 or it's going to be DS3. I don't see a Monster 2 ever happening. You have to keep in mind the kind of headspace Future was in when he even created that project. In particular with a DS3, I think that sounds a little more likely, considering how DS2 is just a sequel to Dirty Sprite and how it's almost been 10 years since DS2 had came out. So whether if We Don't Trust You I think is better than DS2, I kind of have to wait and see where this second album goes. And also in terms of just, you know, new releases as well. For the month, you know, Ski Master Slump God came out with his new single Shibuya. For one, I'll say this: Ski Master Slump God, whenever he drops, he doesn't disappoint. He always manages to entertain me, even though he has kind of the same way of rapping almost every time, having this almost the same flow every time. Something about that flow and just how he just raps super quick. Something about it. It's always so damn entertaining. But I don't know, with this song in particular, it sounds, and I don't mean to like discredit the song by saying this, but it kind of reminds me of like a TikTok song in a way. In terms of just the production, like this song kind of reminds me of 500 Pounds by Lil Tecca. All I'm gonna say in conclusion is, Ski, you gotta release the album at some point, man. You gotta release it. We've waited way too fucking long. Carti, I completely forgot. This man also dropped the song Ketamine. I totally forgot Playboi Carti even dropped a song this month. Definitely the odd one out of the 6 singles that he's dropped for his album. And I think it's only the odd one out because it has a lot more of like that rock kind of feel to it. While I am still recommending the song and I still think it's a good song, in my opinion, this is the weakest out of the 6 songs that he's dropped. But the main question being, outside of just the fact of when the fuck is he dropping the album, will any of these 6 songs going to be making it onto the album? Part of me feels like no, but I won't be surprised if they are. Because out of the 6 singles that he's released for his new album Music, several of them have become really popular. And to not even add any of these 6 songs onto streaming platforms is kind of shocking. One song I do want to recommend is the song Spray the Champagne with the Migos. This being a track where the hook is also kind of repetitive, and Quavo instead is just screaming, spray the champagne, spray the champagne, spray the champagne, spray the champagne. I think instead of it coming off as obnoxious, it kind of feels a little more celebratory. Like, it feels like you really accomplished something. I mainly found out about this track in particular just because I've been watching Atlanta. And in the 3rd episode of the 1st season, as people who've seen the show know, the Migos actually have a cameo in that episode. And at the end of the episode, they play that song. Speaking of Atlanta, one of the episode that I actually watched pretty recently was I got to the 1st episode of the final season, being season 4. And not to go into spoilers for people who haven't seen the show, but essentially with that episode, Alfred, or Paperboy, is, you know, he found out through the radio that like one of his favorite rappers passed away. The entire episode, he's listening to his music and finds out that, and hears him like, and hears his lyrics and hears the rapper like talking about certain shit, and then kind of finds out that through the album that he's listening to, it's like a scavenger hunt. And while there's the whole montage scene of him just doing various activities while listening to the album, the song that plays, I was like, I've heard that voice somewhere before. Where the fuck have I heard it? I was like, is that Earl Sweatshirt? And I looked it up, and it was Earl Sweatshirt. And it made me want to actually go back and revisit some of Earl Sweatshirt's discography. I didn't listen to his most recent project with The Alchemist, but I heard his album that he dropped before that, Sick. And that kind of brings me to the next song recommendation, which is actually my favorite Earl Sweatshirt song, which is 2010. And for people who haven't really heard Earl Sweatshirt rap before, all you really got to know is the man does not rap on beat. I don't know what it is, he just doesn't know how to rap on beat. The subject matter that he's rapping about and the overall production as well, it feels very much like, I don't want to say mainstream, but it's the closest thing that I feel like we can ever get to a mainstream Earl Sweatshirt song.
Drum roll, here go my little entrance. Gun hole, no one to go get it. 5 hoes on me like the Olympics.
With these past couple videos I have been putting out, I do listen to music when I edit, but I listen to stuff that's a little more low key. But with the Dune soundtrack, regardless of my thoughts on the movie, yeah, that shit was fire, better than the books. I've already seen it like 15,000 fucking times. But the song that I really like, and one of my favorite scenes also in the movie, being the scene where Paul is riding a worm. I did want to revisit the soundtrack, primarily because I saw an interview where Hans Zimmer was actually discussing how he created the soundtrack for Dune, and how he said how most sci-fi soundtracks kind of have this grand orchestral kind of music to it. But he said, why the fuck doesn't it sound futuristic? For a movie that's supposed to be futuristic, why doesn't the soundtrack sound futuristic? And I thought about it, and I was like, holy shit, there's not a whole lot of movies that have a futuristic sounding soundtrack. The only other one that I can think of is like Blade Runner 2049. And the last song I'm actually going to recommend for this episode is actually going to be from a newer artist, Rich Amiri. Motherfucker's been blowing up on TikTok. His track, I Want Everything, it's pretty fucking infectious. And the main reason why this song is so infectious is because he kind of uses an ad-lib working for the entire song. That ad-lib being, I want everything. The fact that he spreads it out even throughout just like the rest of the song, and how it even kicks off the chorus as well, it goes pretty hard. Yeah, in particular with the tracks that I have visited from Rich Amiri, I Want Everything is definitely my favorite. I will not be surprised if Rich Amiri's career does go further. And of course, there's other tracks that I would recommend outside of just the ones that I did mention, but I think these tracks in particular were the ones that really stood out to me throughout the entire month. These were primarily the songs I was listening to throughout the month. On that note, I do hope I was able to give some sort of great recommendations for you guys. Hopefully you enjoyed some of them. If you did, just let me know which ones, or if you guys got any music that you guys listen to, just any genre outside of country. Don't fucking recommend country to me.